Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Digging History and Honoring the Sacrifice. And I'm James McCormick, and I am filming today from my work office at the Point Pleasant and Lake and Ray Cook Learning Center. It's the River Museum in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I'm going to give you a little peek of this logo that we got going on here. Okay, really cool. But that's going to be a new surprise. A lot of exciting things happening in and around the Point Pleasant area, including the Mothman Festival that's coming up on the 16th and the 17th of September of 2023. And we hope that some of you can make it here. It's a big festival, usually about 30,000 people. Jeff Wamsley, who runs the Mothman Museum, is a very good friend of mine. And that is what we're going to talk about today, is how do we build relationships so that we can get access to cool places to metal detect. Now, I want to also talk to you about a good friend that I met at Fellman Steel. Now, the Fellman Steel Company is in New Haven, West Virginia, and it has been around under different names for about, since 1952, I believe. And the gentleman that runs the plant now, his name is Vitaly Anilov. And I can tell you that he is a great guy and has become an awesome friend. And they own a bunch of property. And because of that relationship, I was able to get exclusive digging rights, okay, in and around an area that's obviously not near the steel mill per se, but it is still one of their properties. And I found some cool things, and you're going to see some of the videos of some of those cool things that I found. But what's more important is the things that I found is I'm currently preserving them, and I am setting them up to make a display about this big, about that wide, because I found a lot of really cool things related to from 1860s up until the 1890s. There was an old house site there, and during this dig I managed to find a coin, just one coin, but it was an 1865 Indian head penny, beautiful condition, several spoons and different artifacts. And once I get those cleaned up, which they're in the middle of being cleaned now, to include some iron that we're doing some electrolysis on so that we can preserve it, and they'll last and last and last. And then Vitaly is going to have something really cool, and he doesn't know this yet, but he's going to have something really cool to hang up in his office. And he's kind of a historian. As I sit around and talked to him, he kept all the pictures, and in these pictures I was able to open it up and see where these old farmhouses were in and around that property that are no longer there. So that's the other thing I want to talk to you about, is how do you do your research? Are you researching? Are you gathering pictures? Are you gathering data so that you can take a look and see what the area looked like? And you look for terrain features. And you know, a lot of times if you look, mountains don't change a lot, rivers don't change a whole lot. They might get a little wider, but since 1952, when I was looking at the construction photos, not much had changed as far as the landscape. So that gave me a really exact spot on location. I was able to actually go to the fireplace sites because I could see the chimneys in the pictures, and because I, looked at these pictures and I matched it up with the data and the maps that I had, I was able to go right to the spot. And sure enough, digging down in an old chimney place, you will find really old artifacts. These houses were all built before the Civil War. So some of these houses date back even to the very late 1700s, when people first came into the area. And I found some ox shoes and things like that that you don't normally find. And I found some buttons, really cool tomback buttons, definitely pre-Civil War, and they looked super nice. I found some pewter. Pewter's generally not in good shape when you find it, and it's been in the ground for a long time. But nonetheless, it was an amazing hunt. Now, how did you make that happen? Well, I'm going to tell you something, metal detectorists. we have got to do a better job at being friendly. I mean, it's just the way that it is. A friendly talk, a friendly chat. I know a lot of metal detectorists, and I love you guys and gals to death. But sometimes, you know, you just want to find stuff and you just want to keep it for yourself. You're going to have to share some of this if you want to start getting access to some of these properties. You can't just sit and think, well, this is all about me. This is all about what I'm going to dig, and I'm not even going to tell any of my friends or share any of this information. I've been doing this show for over 3 years, and I can tell you that there have been some times whenever I have metal detected with a couple of folks, not very often, but I have metal detected with a couple of folks that have really let me down, and they've let me down in a couple of ways. Number one, they went on sites where we had permission and exclusive permission that they had to have to dig with me. They tried to sneak in to a site, and that just totally ruined our friendship and our relationship. And I don't think that, and I see them on Facebook from time to time, and it's okay. You know, they do their thing, I do mine. But you're only going to be able to be a jerk one time to a property owner. One time. And I'm going to tell you, they're going to throw you off their property. I throw you off my property. You know, I own several acres all over the county and all over the state. We own property in different places. And you can bet you if someone does something that I don't want them to do on my property, it's the last time that they'll ever be there to hunt or metal detect or anything or fish or whatever. So let's have respect for property owners because it's their property. It's not yours. And that includes the things that are in the ground. That's why if I dig up, then I'm telling you folks, I've dug up some really awesome looking old silver coins. And I had to go show it to the owner. You're obligated to do that. In my opinion, if you don't do that, it's just like stealing. And that's what we got to get away from. That's the reason why that the state is hard to work with in regards to allowing us to metal detect on state property, is because people will go in, they take it, they don't fill their holes, and then, you know, nobody sees the history. You know, we're trying to work out a professional agreement with different organizations and to include the state to try to get this on the docket for state legislature. But I'll tell you, it's going to take professionalism in this sport / hobby if we hope to get anything done from this. So you got to build relationships and you got to be sincere about it. Hey, I like people. I do. If I didn't like people, I wouldn't be voluntarily doing this for over 3 years, going into my 4th season now, doing digging history and honoring the sacrifice. And we've had some great times. Now I've been down. I had, you know, injury to my leg, my knee, and my ankle, but I'm on the mend now, and I'm looking forward to this heat. You know what I mean? For it to subside so I can get out. A lot of snakes out there. But again, that's why it's very important now for me able to work those relationships with those people that I'm getting access to their property. So you need to make sure, 100% sure, that before you enter anybody's property, you have permission, and then you respect the property owner. Because it's terrible, and I see it. Most of the time, the property owner will say, well, you know what, you can just keep what you find, and that's great. But even if that property owner tells me that, I still show them what I find. And the cool thing is I have found things like missing rings, you know, missing keys that had been missing, that had been dropped by, you know, one property owner's father, like 40 or 50 years ago, I can't remember, and be able to hand those keys back. You know, that was an emotional moment for them. You know, to be able to have a reconnection. They could remember when their dad lost his keys and everybody was looking all over the place and they wanted to know where I found it. And you know, and allow them to have an emotional connection. And do you think that I will have a problem getting back on that property? No, I won't, because I respect them and respect what they have and leave it in many cases better than I found it. You know, I had an area in Cabell County, West Virginia, where I was digging near a Civil War camp, finding all kinds of stuff. The property owner says, "Oh, there's some really beautiful rocks. I'm trying to build this this rock fence." And so I started digging rocks and piling them by the road so that they could come by and pick them up. Did I have to do that? Did they ask me to do that? No, they didn't. But did they appreciate it? Absolutely. So now what? All I have to do is send them a message or call them. And they told me I don't even have to do that, but I do that anyways. I will call them or send them a message and say, "Hey, I'll be there today. This is what I'm driving. This is where I'm parking. Is there anything that you need me to do?" And they gain that trust. You gain that trust and you build those relationships, because that's what a lot of this is about as well, is building the relationships with the property owners and the business owners and the politicians that are elected here. So if they see that you're a professional and you're not just some dirt pirate out there that's digging, stealing, and leaving the place looking like a train wreck, then you know what? We might be able to one of these days get access, to some state parks or at least wildlife management areas, as long as we abide by the rules. Like hunters and fishers have to abide by the rules. I'm not one that advocates for, adding more, red tape to the situation, licensing, but it's come to this point because we don't get that access to do that in some of those areas because somebody did something really bad. Okay, and a lot of people did some bad things, and they went out and they dug and they destroyed and they went and dug in places they were told not to dig because there was an archaeological site there that they said, and so it ruined it for everybody. And this all changed about when metal detectors really started getting popular in the late 1970s and the early 1980s. There was a time when you could still go out there and do that. And you just had to get permission from, from the site manager. It's not that way now. We were asked to do some metal detecting on a missing person case one time, and this missing person happened to be in a wildlife management area, and we were allowed to go and do some artifact hunting, but it was for specifically to help find clues to this missing person. So we do a lot of things like that, and we like to do things like that. But it's important for me to reach out to you. If you're watching this show and you're thinking about getting into metal detecting, or you're in metal detecting, maybe you look at the show and say, I don't like this guy, or whatever. Look, I don't get paid to do this. And I love to go out and work with children and disabled veterans and disabled people and senior citizens and anybody that wants to get into this, because I dedicate my time to do that. Okay, and we're not able to get access because some folks out there are metal detecting and they're tearing up property and they're posting it all over Facebook. You're showing your videos, all your finds and stuff, and then people are saying, "Hey, I gave you access. Why didn't you at least show me what you found?" But there's a couple of you that are not doing that, and I want to thank you for that. My friends over in the UK, very professional group of metal detectors. Okay, but of course it's regulated and it's licensed, and we're trying to get over to the UK so that we can do some filming around some of these Roman sites, and hopefully find some artifacts and then be able to get permission to bring them back to West Virginia to put in our State Archive Center as part of a history of the world, to show them, what digging the history and honoring the sacrifices is really part of as well, that we preserve history, just like what I'm doing here at the Point Pleasant River Museum and Lake and Ray Cook Learning Center, preserving history so that you have something to see, something to do, and that you can appreciate it. You stick it in your sock drawer, you put it in your little relic room someplace, you might take pictures of it, but folks, when you leave this world, and trust me, you will leave this world, you die like everybody else, we all have an expiration date, somebody's going to go through that. And I hope that you've at least left a will that will put that in a place where Americans and citizens of this state can enjoy seeing what you found and not just keeping it in the hands of private collectors. I get it. I have my private collection too and things I like. But we have to respect history. And that's what we do here with Digging History and Honoring the Sacrifice. And I want you to enjoy some of these videos from the field, especially where I was digging at my good friend Vitaly's property site down there in Mason County near New Haven, West Virginia, where history is rich and it runs along the river, just like here at the Point Pleasant River Museum and Lake and Ray Cook Learning Center. You come and see us here. We will show you some cool stuff. So anyways, sit back and enjoy the footage from the field.